Hi everyone, I'm Lisa from Down to Earth Gardening and Design, and I'm out in the garden today sharing some drought tolerant perennials. So really important this year. We've been in a drought this year and a lot of us have water bans, or we're really trying not to use our water, save on our water use. So we're looking for some really easy care drought tolerant perennials. So number one that I want to share with you is a sedum variety. So sedums are in the succulent family, so they just do not need a lot of water. They actually do better without a lot of water. This particular variety here is really beautiful, so I wanted to share it with you. This is more of a rosette form. So there are different sedums that some of them are upright and some of them are ground cover. This is a funny little in-between combination. It's called a rosette, and this is a Sedum Seaboldi, and the common name is October Daphne, which is what I will call it. So beautiful foliage. It's a blue-green with a little bit of burgundy tinge on the edges. And then it does get a really pretty pink mauve flower the end of summer, early fall. So it's got a tight bud now, but they are going to open. So when I hold it upright, it does look tall, but it's not, because like I said, it's a rosette. So it acts a little bit as a ground cover. And it's probably only 4 to 6 inches tall. This group here does have 3 plants together. I love to plant in multiples, and I especially love it when they all combine to make a nice mass planting. I feel like it just really makes more of an impact. And let's face it, when you have a nice ground cover like this, it does crowd out a lot of the weeds. So easy care, doesn't need a lot of water, and in fact prefers very little water. So that's one of my favorites. So the next plant in our drought tolerant perennial series is Coreopsis, also known as tick seed. And this variety that I have here is called Moonbeam. But you will find some other really pretty colors in the Coreopsis. I've seen one that's a yellow with a maroon eye, and they also have some mauves and some roses, some paler yellow, lemon yellow, and then some brighter yellows. So a few different colors. But this is a thread leaf variety, and you'll also notice this beautiful textured ferny foliage, which I think really adds a lot of interest to the garden. But the Coreopsis loves full sun and is considered a water-wise plant, so very drought tolerant, very minimal care needs, which of course we love as gardeners. I have this planted in my full sun garden. This is a south-facing slope here, and not much care at all was given to this plant. So it is early fall and it's still throwing out some flowers, but this will flower through the summer, and there's long-lasting blooms on this plant, which I really love. So the other thing to know about the Coreopsis that I do want to mention is it does travel around. It's got some underground roots, so you really want to give it a wide berth in the garden. I have planted a group here. I believe I started with 5, and I've been dividing this for a few years now. So low maintenance, all I do to it is late fall, I cut it right to the ground, and then usually in the spring when it starts to come up, that's when I take my divisions and move it around or give it away. So another thing to know is, like I said, in the fall here, it's still throwing out some flowers, but it is going to turn this beautiful yellow color for the foliage. So that gives it another really nice fall interest. You can kind of see here where it's starting to turn a little bit. So it will go yellow, sometimes a little bit bronze, which is a lot of fun. So another great water-wise plant for you guys. Okay, hi again. I'm out here in this full sun garden showing you, actually I have two drought tolerant plants here in this garden, and they're both purple, very hardy plants. You all know how much I love purple, so I love showing you these two. But the first one here is toward the back of the garden, and it is called Russian sage. I usually do put this towards the back because typically it gets 3 to 4 feet tall, but there are quite a few varieties that are a little shorter. I know Little Spire is a little bit shorter, so you can look into that, but they all have beautiful vibrant flowers and some nice blue-gray foliage, which is really pretty. This is a highly fragrant plant, and although it does have the word sage in its name, it is not a culinary herb. So you can use this in potpourris. I love to use it as a dried flower. Like I said, beautiful, vibrant flowers. This is a long bloomer, and it can be a beautiful standalone plant, or I also love to use it with my ornamental grasses. I think it has a really pretty natural look. So some people call this a shrub, some call it a perennial. I call it a shrubby perennial, and the reason for that is you can see here the woody stems. And you will notice that this plant does throw off suckers, and I will often divide them spring or fall by just cutting the traveling roots and then relocating the plants. And in fact, I did relocate this one last fall, and it's done pretty well. You can see how big it's grown in just a year here. So another really great drought tolerant plant for you that is highly fragrant and will give you some long-lasting blooms. Our next lovely plant in our drought tolerant plant lineup is called Catmint, which I do love, closely related to catnip, which of course cats go crazy about. And this is a relative, and I notice they'll give a little bit of attention to it. Nothing like catnip, but they'll roll around in it and notice it at least. But I do love this plant because, as I said, it is a water-wise plant, very low water needs. This garden here does not get very much water. We had a drought this year, and it's early fall. I planted this about 2 months ago, so in a drought, and it's done really well here. This particular variety is called Cat's Meow. I love the name. You'll find quite a few catmint varieties, but this one here at maturity does get about 10 to 12 inches tall. So it's considered a summer flowering plant, but it's early fall and it's still throwing out some beautiful flowers. So I have noticed with the catmint that if you do deadhead it after its first flowering is done, then you are more likely to get a really nice second flowering in late summer or early fall. So like I said, I've done nothing to this plant and it's done really well. So there are lots of varieties out there. I used to plant a lot of Walker's Low catmint. That one's much taller, and the issue that I had with it was very floppy. So I love this one because it's a tight mounding plant, and you can see the nice little mound here. This plant does so well with low maintenance that I have planted it quite often and used it for commercial applications in municipal gardens. I will notice that roadside, even in the winters here in New England with the salt and the sand from plowing, etc., it still does beautifully. So I think this is a winner here. I'll also say that the deer avoid it and it's pretty rabbit proof, so what's not to love about this little plant? Okay, so for our last perennial in our Drought Tolerant Perennial series, I do have to bring you back to the Sedum. So this is also a beautiful perennial that really shines in the fall. So drought tolerant and really shines in the fall. Really gorgeous right now. It is mid-September, so it's pretty much in its full glory right now. So I really wanted to show you this one and save it for last. So Sedum, again, this is an upright variety. They come in the rosettes like I showed you, the ground covers, and then the upright variety. When they first flush out, they have a grayish blue serrated leaf, which is also really pretty. And then the upright varieties grow in some varying heights. So this one here is called Rockin' Round Pure Joy. And I have to tell you, because we're always interested to see how things grow in the field, that it will say on the tag that the Pure Joy gets to about 12 to 18 inches in height. However, these beauties here are a little bit more than that, which really shows you that depending on the site, the sun, the soil, they can vary a little bit. So to get out my measuring tape here, we are just about here at 36 inches. This is our well-loved measuring tape here. It gets a lot of use. But this here's been planted for a few years, and I will tell you that when we first planted this, it was a little bit in some dappled shade. There was a tree that anchored the end of this garden here, and they were much shorter. They were the actual size, probably in at about 16 inches. But now that they get full sun, they are a lot taller. So I do think they're really happy here. I have 3 planted here together because I do like my group plantings for impact, and they currently have their mauve pinkish flowers almost in full bloom here. But I will say that the flower lasts quite a while. They attract a lot of butterflies. We usually see a lot around this clump right here. It's up to you whether or not you want to trim it down after a frost, after a hard frost. You just cut it right to the ground, or you can leave these beautiful blooms for the winter. Of course, they'll be brown, but they do get pretty interesting in the winter with some snow on them. And then cut them right flush with the ground in the early spring. So they're not finicky about that. We do use them to dry, so we'll strip the leaves and we'll dry them. I just think they're so pretty and versatile. But again, a really easy drought tolerant perennial for you that really shines in the fall. They do like the well-drained soil and very little water. So thank you again for joining me on our video, and if you like it, please hit like and go ahead and subscribe to our channel for some future gardening fun.